Okay, good evening. It is August 21st, 2025. This is Debbie Davis. Okay, so I wanted to do I have recently just been to another museum here in Minnesota that I wanted to share with you, that I am really finding some really interesting history here that I never knew about, and they don't even teach it in school or anything anymore. So I wanted to share this with you, and it's the history about the Dakota Lakota people here. And so I just visited recently the Nicollet County Historical Society. It's a treaty site. Okay, there's a treaty, the treaties that were signed by, with the Lakota, Dakota people with our U.S. government when we took over their land. Or, not me, but, the U.S. government took over the land here and got them to sign these treaties. And it turns out that these are not what they thought they were and not what we thought they were. Okay, so there was there's a museum here in St. Peter, Minnesota. Okay, it's a little bit south of the cities. Okay, and I just went and visited this. Okay, and so this goes back to the Abraham Lincoln days, where in this museum there is a letter from this guy named George Day, who was assigned as a special agent by Abraham Lincoln. So apparently Abraham Lincoln had special agents that were going and investigating certain things. This is the kind of thing we should have going on today. So George Day writes this letter to Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1862, and it says that I have discovered numerous violations of the law and many frauds. So as we know, we've got a lot of fraud going on here in Minnesota. Okay, so he actually says fraud, many frauds committed by past agents and superintendents. By 1862, failed promises and a collapsed Dakota economy directly contributed to the tragedies of the U.S.-Dakota War. George Day was a special agent assigned by President Lincoln to investigate some things. He was appointed to investigate Minnesota Indian policy by the United States Senate in 1861. His report to President Lincoln on New Year's Day, 1862, was less than complimentary. Let's just say that, all right? He stated the traders are a curse. So he's talking about the fur traders. So it sounds like the fur traders are more like lobbyists or something at the time, is what it sounds like to me. It says that they are a curse to the Indians and a curse of the nations, for they boast that they control Congress and have done so. So it sounds like the fur traders are more like lobbyists in the day. Like we have these lobbyists that try to buy out these congressmen and Senate. And this has been going on for years, and it's not okay. It's basically bribery, The whole system is defective. This is right in the museum. The letter, the exact letter. I'm reading off the exact letter that was written in January 1st, 1862 by George Day, who was an investigative agent of President Abraham Lincoln. Okay. The whole system is defective and must be revised, or your red children, well, basically meant the Indians, will continue to be wronged and outraged, and the vengeance of heaven will be poured out over this nation for it. Those were his exact words in this letter, in this museum. And boy, have we wronged the Indians. Okay? There is a lot of history that I'm learning here recently. Okay? Most of the land we now call Minnesota was ceded or preceded by the Dakota and Ojibwe people to the U.S. in land cession treaties. The Dakota term Minnesota Makoti, the Dakota language term for land, it means land of the sky. They are the ones who actually made the name Minnesota, the Dakota people. They are the ones who formed the name Minnesota. The term for land of the sky, tinted water. This is what Minnesota means. This is the source of the name of our state, Minnesota. Dakota and Ojibwe treaties with the U.S. government affected the lands and lifeways of the indigenous people of this state. During treaty negotiations, U.S. officials promised that Indian reservations would always belong to the tribes and that treaty payouts and provisions would be delivered in full and on time. However, the U.S. representatives did not honor these promises, and many Dakotas suffered from starvation, etc. This led to the U.S.-Dakota War in 1862. These are really interesting things that I'm learning about the Dakota people. Okay, they also say they were from Starfire Nations. Then, so then I found this video about them as well. There's a lot of history that it seems to be covered up.
They say they came from the sky, watching over the earth long before humans walked it. Across many native traditions, stories of the star people have been passed down for generations. Were they spirits? Were they ancestors? Or were they something else entirely? The Arapaho, Lakota, and Hopi tell stories of beings from the stars who visited their people, bringing knowledge and
Dakota,
warnings. Some
Hopi.
legends describe them as tall, glowing figures who could travel between worlds. Others speak of children being taken to the sky, only to return years later with strange new wisdom. The Zuni people believe...
Oh, shoot. Okay, my phone just died. Okay. Well, anyways, there is, there's a lot of history here that we don't know, okay, about these people. And these treaties, our government did not honor these treaties, and this is not okay. You know, so thankfully we have some museums here that are telling the truth. Okay, they're not teaching it in school anymore, so thankfully there's some museums here that are still presenting the truths. So treaties are a very powerful thing, apparently. The treaties are contracts between nations. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. The Dakota people were and are today, they were made to be a sovereign nation. A series of Supreme Court decisions determine tribal sovereignty exists as a precondition among self-governing entities. This status legally protests all rights and privileges reserved and implied by nationhood. Treaties are contracts between nations. Before American independence, tribes entered into treaties with the European nations as independent sovereign governments. During the 19th century, the U.S. eroded the independent status of the tribes through treaties. The Supreme Court rulings and legislation. The Supreme Court rulings confirmed that every treaty ratified by the U.S. Senate under Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution was the supreme law of the land. These treaties granted rights from the tribes to the federal government. So there was, it sounds to me like basically they did them wrong. They did them really wrong, and they tricked them and frauded them. Is really, so, it sounds like, it sounds like there's a lot of wrong that happened here. That's not okay. And I'm just learning this. I have never been to this museum before, so I just thought I would look, go to this museum. There's a lot of these museums that are part of the Blue Star museums that are free to veterans, and so I'm enjoying going to these museums. Okay, and this is one of them. And so to me, this seems like, this has been years of, like, 1860, like since 1862, these Indians have been done wrong all these years, and nobody's tried to correct it. Nobody. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's not okay, and it's not godly. It's not Christian-like. It's not, you know what I mean? It's just, something has to be done here. And these people have suffered way too much, and it's like they can't get out of it because there's these treaties, Okay.